there's no need for me to blame myself if anyone would be uncomfortable in this situation. Knowing that, I'd also feel all alone, isolated, as if I'm the only one. No one can possibly understand what I'm going through because no one has ever gone through this before. And continuing on, I realized that when my customary fatigue sets in, I can bravely face, humbly tolerate, and patiently endure the discomfort. Discomfort is a thing to be patiently borne, bravely faced, and humbly tolerated. So not at all something to be excited about or receive it as a startle and scare ourselves by telling ourselves that I can't stand, this is more than I can tolerate. Basically, if we put a ceiling, a limit on the amount of discomfort we're willing to bear, well, when we sense that we're approaching that limit, that arbitrary limit that we've set, we will be scaring ourselves. In fact, oh, I'm almost at the end of my rope, I can't stand anymore. And what we're afraid of. There's several myths there. We're afraid that we will collapse. We're afraid that we will give in, give out, possibly faint. And all this is vaguely running around in our minds. So this is why in the steps, the 4 steps here, we spotlight, label things what they are, and apply the appropriate axiom, seeking to be realist, to have an attitude of realism instead of letting our imagination run away with us. And that would be our symptoms telling us this is more than we can stand. Danger, danger, danger. You're in so much danger. So this threat of danger fans fear. Then we have self-blame and guilt, and the self-blame and guilt fans the fear. So we have a vicious cycle. So we need to interrupt that cycle. And using the 4 steps is one of the ways that we do that. When the time comes for this internship, I spot that I'll be able to move my muscles. Lastly, I replace the insecure thought of, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work full-time after this internship, with the secure thought that if I am only able to work part-time, I'll be able to make ends meet, and it won't be the end of the world. Now James has become a realist indeed. He's looking at the realistic facts of the situation. And if there were other people involved, he would be looking at the realistic facts of the situation, the people, the places, and the things involved. Now, 4th step, very important. We need to see how much we've improved since we began using the self-talk and the recovery method. Well, before he learned the method, he says, I would have obsessed about my sense of doom and would not have had any idea about how to help myself. Although I still experience some residual symptoms, I have recovery techniques to help me through this. Very, very well done, James. Very good spotting. Now, it took several minutes to read that example and comment on it. However, this whole 4-step method that James applied can be applied in minutes. 1 or 2 minutes, and your symptoms are calm. And you just keep applying whatever axioms you need to keep your distressing symptoms at bay. It is immediately effective and immediately available. You don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to take any medicine. It's just there, and I can use it at my fingertips. Now, a word of caution here. We're not advising anyone to stop taking their meds, their medication. And we're assuming that you've been to a physician, you have a diagnosis of stress or nervousness. And nervousness is just another word for saying I don't know how to handle my stress. Doesn't mean that you're a coward, doesn't mean that you're a wimp like portrayed in the movies or like some people in society think. It simply means you have a set of symptoms that are characteristically causing you a number of symptoms: fatigue, trembling, tremors, nausea, headaches, and you don't have a coping strategy. That's all that means. And this is a coping strategy. All right, so Eve checks in on this example and says, I spot, your symptoms are distressing and upsetting, but they are not dangerous. And we're always assuming you've been to a physician. This applies to you. You've been to a physician, you have your diagnoses. Otherwise, your physical symptoms, if you haven't had them for years and years, may be a symptom that needs to be seen by a doctor. So we want to rule that out, anything that might be at all dangerous, so we can use this system with the method with peace of mind. James took the danger out of the situation. Most things that cause us stress, 95% of daily activity, Dr. Lowe said, is trivial. And it's the trivial things that cause us stress. This internship is basic and not basic. It's transient, it's going to last 16 weeks, it's not going to last forever. It has a beginning and an end. Knowing that has a calming effect. James can take things in part acts. That means he can take things in a manageable, small portion, part acts, an amount that is easily manageable. And as he focuses on one task and then the other, before he knows he has a considerable amount of the task completed. And it was not overwhelming because he wasn't focusing on, whoa, I've got so much to do over the next few weeks. We'll just take them in part acts one at a time in their appropriate place. James was willing to bear the discomfort for long-term comfort. And the action is, have the will to bear discomfort. Comfort comes in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort we're willing to bear. And it has to do with setting a limit. If I don't set a limit, when my discomfort gets to this level, I'm not startled by it or afraid because I haven't told myself that I can only accept this much. So as long as we don't set a limit to the amount of discomfort we're willing to bear, we can bear it. Calm comes in direct proportion to the amount of discomfort we're willing to bear. Again, if we're not sure if this is discomfort or a physical symptom that needs to be seen, we should have it verified by a qualified physician. When there is an intruder in our brain, we do not have to entertain it. That means we can choose what we think about. We can exchange thoughts. We do it constantly. We've been doing it all our lives. Perhaps we've never had it pointed out to us. We can exchange insecure thoughts with secure thoughts. We may not be practiced at it because we have a history or a pattern of thinking negative thoughts, blaming ourselves, indicting ourselves, putting ourselves down, telling ourselves we're not as good as everybody else, is better than, and more confident, and more intelligent. And that is the defeatist babble that runs around in our brain like a endless loop. But this can be interceded, it can be decreased by exchanging insecure thoughts with secure thoughts. Just takes a little practice. And this is a try, fail, try, succeed method. It's like on-the-job training. The more you practice, the better you get. It's a skill. Being calm is a skill. Diminishing symptoms is a skill. And skills can be learned. Danger to James's social personality if you make a mistake. It says James can accept or reject this. A threat to the social personality is a fear of how we're being perceived by society, social society, by people. How do they perceive me? How are they looking at me? What do they think of me? The only one, or the most important one to be considered, is how do you think about yourself. That's the only important thing. As long as you're ethical and moral and not committing crimes or trespassing on someone's property and or person, then what you think about yourself is the most important thing. And there may be angry temper at the illness. James has fearful temper in a form of self-distrust. And he can learn to trust himself if he starts giving himself a pat on the back for the effort. And this is called endorsement. Endorse himself for the effort that he's making. and this will interrupt the vicious cycle of blaming, putting the self down, and feeling guilt and shame. With a calm brain, there is no chance of a sustained panic.